you are someone who has spent hours, cumulatively days, maybe even months of your life, stuck to the sofa, paralysed in front of the TV, binge watching your favourite shows, wondering what is fundamentally wrong with you that you can't just go and do the things that you know are good for you and that you know that you need to do, but just sitting there and continuing to feel guilty, this is the video for you. I'm going to share what TV addiction has looked like for me over my life and how that has changed, to illustrate the biggest misunderstanding that the self-help world has perpetuated in people with diagnosed or undiagnosed ADHD to make us feel bad about ourselves for something that was actually fundamentally not within our control. And ultimately, share a way that you can change your mindset around this to help you manage TV addiction. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you'll know that between the years of 2020 and 2022, I was self-employed. And after a year in employment, I have now gone back to self-employment again. What I've not really talked openly about before is the fact that one of the biggest issues for me when I was self-employed, and one of my fears going back into it again, is the issue that I have with watching TV when I should be working. I've never been someone that really understands going down like a TikTok wormhole, though I haven't downloaded TikTok for that reason. Also, it makes me feel weird and sad about the world. Or obsessively playing video games, because the one thing that I struggle with the most is TV. And I found that really hard to admit to myself because it's something that I also enjoy and gives me a huge amount of escapism and helps me when I put, repeat shows on in the background, get through really boring admin tasks, but also not really wanting to admit to other people because I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm a grown-ass woman who should be able to regulate my own behaviour and just stop watching TV. Or should I? My ADHD diagnosis just over a year ago has made the biggest difference when it comes to understanding my addiction to TV and learning how to overcome it, because it's made me realise that it was never my fault, and if you're struggling with this, it's not your fault either. In this video, I'm going to explain why. Next video, I'm going to share some actionable tips to help you manage TV addiction. I'm not going to put it in this one because the video was going to end up being like a million years, but let's get into it today. What even is TV addiction? I was really reluctant at first to use the word addiction because I don't like throwing terms around willy-nilly that, specifically describe things like substance abuse disorders. And TV addiction isn't in the DSM-5, but when I was doing some research about it, this is the description that I found that I've written on this handy cue card so I wouldn't forget it. TV addiction is the compulsive viewing of TV despite negative effects on social and emotional functioning. And the word to me that jumps out there, especially in relation to ADHD, is compulsive. And whether you want to describe your relationship with TV as an addiction or not, for me, is very much a compulsion. So whether it's video games, social media, a specific interest, or TV, when our brain is interested in something and activated by something and our attention is spotlighted on something, we end up with this compulsive desire to keep consuming it, researching it, doing the thing, and pulling ourselves out of that is really difficult. I didn't know this before understanding what ADHD was or understanding what I had it, so I spent 30 years just thinking that I was a failure of a human being and that I was really lazy. But we'll come back to that shortly. So I thought I'd share some specific examples of what TV addiction has looked like for me over my lifespan. There's been a massive influx in ADHD diagnosis over the last couple of years, partly because of growing awareness and understanding of the disorder, especially in women and in adults. In my opinion, one of the reasons why it's become a lot more obvious or apparent, and especially for me, this is what happened in my life, is because as you get older and as the world and technology has evolved and changed, things that when you were a kid kind of didn't really matter suddenly become a massive problem. When I was a teenager, I would get home from school, I would get in my bed, I had a TV in my room, I would put my Gilmore Girls DVD in and I would watch 4 episodes in a row. But it didn't really matter because all I needed to do was go to school, come home, do my homework. Like, it just didn't really have an impact. MSN was another big one for me, not TV, but I just had this absolute compulsion to be on MSN when I got home from school until I went to bed, talking to my friends. And in all honesty, I do not think I would have passed my GCSEs if my mum hadn't made me uninstall it when I had to prepare for my exams. Because when you're a kid, you've got somebody that can regulate your behaviour for you. When I was at university, again, not so much of an obvious problem. This was between 2010 and 2013. I used to illegally stream Veronica Mars, and the way that it worked on those streaming platforms is you could only watch the shows for a certain amount of time, and then it would block you. So in the 45 minutes while I was blocked is when I would do my work. And I guess I wasn't really aware of it then, but it also wasn't really a problem because there were certain constraints around the things that I was doing that made it possible for me to be forced and go and do what I needed to do. And also my responsibilities weren't that big a deal. But then you find yourself at the age now of 31. It's 2023. We have Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney, a whole world of easy, instant access to the one thing that is going to keep you completely consumed. So many of us are working from home. You might, like me, be working for yourself. There are no external structures and barriers to stop you from doing the thing. And I'm an adult who needs to earn money, pay my mortgage, sustain my friendships and relationship, look after my mental health. All things that, if I am consumed by TV for 5, 6, 7 hours a day, are directly impacted. As I mentioned at the beginning, over the last few years, especially during the pandemic, right, which was a specific time of wanting escapism and struggling with structure and routine, falling into getting completely lost in like living in a series or living in a show. Now, I also love that. It's such a huge escapism for me. It's one of my favourite things to do. It's good for my well-being to be completely immersed in something. But then what do you do when you can't get out of it? If you're feeling really lost right now and you're in this place, if there's anything you take away from this video, please make it this. The starting point is to understand that the biggest source for shame for us and for shame for an ADHD brain is being told by people around us, by the self-help, self-development industry, that we just need to be more self-disciplined and we just need to not watch TV. As if that's like rocket science, right? Like, do you think if I could just be more self-disciplined and just stop watching, that I would be sat here right now? I'm a smart person. That's not groundbreaking advice, right? We have been done a disservice to, shall we say, by being surrounded by a narrative that does not work for the way that our brain works and then just makes us feel bad about ourselves. You get into this headspace where you think, I should be able to control this. I should have more willpower. If I could just have better willpower and step away from the TV right now, then everything would be fine. So I'm a fundamentally flawed failure of a human being that is lazy. So what I will just do is sit here, stare at the TV, feel increasingly bad about myself, feel guilty about all the work that I should be doing, but feel unable to do anything about it, and know that this is just going to happen again tomorrow. Me and Mr. Rachel had a conversation a few months after my diagnosis that was a really moment for me, which is during like 2021 when I was struggling with self-employment and he'd get home and I'd be watching TV, I would feel really judged. He didn't even have to say anything, but I would feel really judged and really self-conscious that he thought that I was lazy because I thought that I was lazy. And he would never say anything, but I was paranoid about it. And when we had a conversation and I said that I understood more why I was doing that and how it related to ADHD, and that it had been so frustrating for me for so long that I couldn't understand why I couldn't just pull myself away and do what I needed to do. He said to me that he used to feel that way too. Like, he would look at me and be like, I know that you have so much to give and you have so much potential. And so it's really hard to watch you being stuck watching TV, but I didn't know how to help you. And at that point, I didn't know how to help myself. Woo! That got unexpectedly emotional. But now we do. So here's where we start. When you understand ADHD, you understand this. It is at its core a disorder of self-regulation. We know what we need to do, but we can't always get ourselves to do it. And that is not our fault. There's a complete disconnect quite often between our intention and our action. And there will be specific things, for example, me with TV, yours might be something different, particularly bad for getting stuck and consumed by. But just because we struggle to self-regulate doesn't mean that we can't put things in place for ourselves that stop us from getting so pulled in, so compulsive and addictive into what we're doing, and that can create structures and boundaries for ourselves that make it easier for us to do what we need to do and what we know is good for us. Managing the compulsion to watch TV is not a matter of self-discipline, it's not a matter of willpower, and anybody that tells you that it is just fundamentally does not understand how your brain works. Ignore them. The first thing to do is to forgive yourself for all the time you have so far spent stuck in that compulsive need to do the thing, and start focusing on external environmental barriers that will keep you from starting or getting stuck in watching TV. In the next video, I'm going to go into a deep dive of all of those different techniques and tools that I have. So if you want to see that, make sure that you subscribed, click the little bell for the notification so it will come up and let you know when that video is out. You know what? You know what my brain did then? This is the other thing. This is the other thing about it. It's not even just a compulsive desire you can't get out of. Sometimes it's the thrill of knowing that you shouldn't. My brain was literally just like, should edit this video, but I could go watch another episode of Jane the Virgin, even though I've already watched it twice. And so it doesn't really matter because I've watched it before, so I won't get stuck into it, but I do know that I'm already stuck into it. Ah!